look at your hands right now, holding that little glowing rectangle at 2 in the morning, feeling your chest tighten and your heart race because of a string of text typed by someone you do not even know. You are sitting there in the dark, letting the random, fleeting opinion of a complete stranger dictate your entire sense of self-worth and ruin your night. Why do we do this? Why do we hand over the keys to our happiness and peace of mind to people we do not even respect? You would never leave the front door of your house wide open for anyone to walk in and steal your television, your money, or your car. Yet you leave the gates of your own mind completely unguarded, allowing absolutely anyone to walk in and steal your joy. They tell you that you need to be liked, that you need to build a personal brand, that you need to collect followers and approval like currency in some endless, exhausting game. But it is a massive lie. This relentless chase for validation does not make you connected or loved. It makes you a prisoner. You are building your own jail cell out of the opinions of others, trapping yourself in a factory of noise designed to distract you from the only thing you truly own, which is your own mind. You buy expensive clothes you do not even like. You take on credit card debt you cannot afford. You travel thousands of miles just to take a picture to prove to people you barely tolerate that you are living a good life. You are a puppet, and you are willingly handing the strings to a fickle, anonymous mob that will forget you exist the moment they scroll past your face. Stop caring about what they think. The people you are so terrified of being judged by are just as scared, just as lost, and just as deeply insecure as you are. They are eating, sleeping, paying taxes, going to the bathroom, and eventually, they are all going to die and be completely forgotten, just like you. In the grand, sweeping scale of eternity, your life is a mere speck of dust, and the opinions of your critics are even less than that. So why are you sweating over a sarcastic comment from a coworker, a passive-aggressive relative at Thanksgiving, or a troll on the internet? Their judgment is not the truth. It is just a reflection of their own miserable reality. If you care about their opinions, you become their slave. You give them a power over you that they never earned and do not deserve. You are a rational human being, not a dog begging for scraps of attention under the dinner table. It is time to wake up and look at the absolute absurdity of your own actions. You are letting people who have no direction in their own lives dictate the direction of yours. You let them tell you what is cool, what is acceptable, and what is successful. Conforming to a constantly shifting American culture that actually profits off your deep-seated insecurities. The tragedy is that you are bleeding out in the arena, fighting for the thumbs up of an audience that does not actually care if you live or die. Cut the strings right now. Step out of this insane circus. Your happiness is not a group project. It is a solo mission. The moment you stop caring about what people think is the exact moment you reclaim your freedom and become truly invincible. The pain you feel from their judgment does not come from their words. It comes from your voluntary agreement with their words. Refuse to agree. Refuse to be a victim of their empty noise. You have a fortress inside of you, an inner citadel that cannot be breached by any insult or slight unless you foolishly unlock the heavy doors from the inside. Stop handing over the keys. Stop running after the impossible horizon of external approval. Stand still, plant your feet firmly on the ground, and realize that the only opinion in this entire universe that will ever truly matter is the one you hold about yourself. But you do not feel invincible right now, do you? You feel exhausted. You feel like you are running a marathon with no finish line, carrying a heavy weight on your back. That is because you are suffering from a sickness, an invisible disease that has infected millions of people across this country. From the bustling streets of New York to the quiet suburbs of the Midwest, it is the disease of the invisible slave. You look in the mirror and you see a free citizen. You see someone who pays their taxes, drives their own car, and makes their own choices in the land of the free. But that freedom is an absolute illusion. The truth is much darker and much more difficult to swallow. when you base your self-worth on the unpredictable opinions of other people. You are voluntarily walking into a prison cell and handing them the key. The ancient philosopher Seneca, a man who possessed immense wealth and walked the halls of the most powerful empire on earth, warned us about this exact trap. He said that no servitude is more disgraceful than the kind we take on willingly, and you take it on every single day. Every time you change your outfit because you are afraid of what your co-workers might whisper. Every time you swallow your true opinion to fit in with a crowd you do not even like. Every time you check your screen 50 times an hour to see if someone validated your existence with a tiny digital heart. You are placing a collar around your own neck. You are handing the leash to a mob of strangers. The great philosopher Epictetus, a man who actually lived as a physical slave and then won his freedom, understood this sickness perfectly. He gave us a powerful, brutal metaphor that should echo in your mind every time you care about the judgment of others. He said that a human being chasing external approval is like a dog tied to a moving cart. The cart represents the turning wheels of the world. The economy, the culture, the shifting opinions of the masses, the trends that change every few minutes. The cart is going to move exactly where it wants to go. Now, the dog has two choices. It can trot peacefully alongside the cart, enjoying the journey, accepting the pace, and maintaining its dignity. Or, it can plant its paws in the dirt, bark wildly at the wheels, and try to run in the exact opposite direction. What happens to the dog that resists? It does not stop the cart. The cart is thousands of pounds heavier than the dog. The dog simply gets dragged. It gets scraped, choked, and battered against the rocks and the pavement. When you obsess over what other people think of you, you are that dog fighting the cart. You are agonizing over something that is completely out of your control. You cannot control what is going on inside the mind of your boss, your neighbor, or some random critic on the internet. Their thoughts are their property, not yours. Yet you exhaust yourself trying to steer their thoughts. You are grasping for things that do not belong to you, and the result is that you are being dragged through life. You feel the friction, the pain, the suffocating pressure of constantly trying to manage an impossible image. You are breathless and bleeding out on the gravel because you refuse to accept the basic reality that you cannot force people to like you. This is the sickness of our modern age. We mistake popularity for value. We mistake conformity for safety. We think that if we just gather enough approval, we will finally feel secure. But the exact opposite is true. The more you chase their approval, the weaker you become. You become a hollow shell, an echo chamber reflecting whatever the crowd demands at any given second. You lose your spine. You lose your center of gravity. You lose the ability to stand up for what is actually right. You were raised in a culture that celebrates independence. A culture that tells you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and be your own person. The American dream is built on the idea of charting your own course. Yet, here you are, outsourcing your self-esteem to a jury of people who do not even have their own lives in order. You buy a house that is too big, in a neighborhood you can barely afford, just to signal to people driving by that you are successful. You are carrying the heavy, crushing weight of their expectations on your shoulders every single day, and it is grinding your spirit into dust. The paradox is that the harder you try to please them, the less they actually respect you, and more importantly, the less you respect yourself. True strength does not come from blending in or seeking applause. It comes from snapping the leash. It comes from realizing that you are the sole master of your mind, and you have no business trying to be the master of theirs. Stop letting the cart drag you. You might be thinking that snapping that leash is impossible because your situation is unique. Your social circle is too demanding, or your job requires you to play the game of pleasing others. You think the pressure you face in your office or on your social media feed is a modern burden that no one in the past could possibly understand. But you are wrong. The cure for your invisible disease was actually forged over 2,000 years ago by two men living at the absolute opposite extremes of human existence. Imagine, for a moment, the lowest position a human being could possibly hold in society. Think of a man born into slavery, possessing absolutely nothing, not even the legal rights to his own physical body. His name was Epictetus. He lived in a brutal world where he was treated as property, facing daily humiliation and the constant, crushing judgment of a society that viewed him as less than human. Now, imagine the complete opposite. Picture the most powerful human being on the face of the earth. His name was Marcus Aurelius. He was the emperor of the Roman Empire, ruling over millions of people, controlling unimaginable wealth, and commanding massive armies. Every single word he spoke was scrutinized. Every action he took was judged. And he was constantly surrounded by people who flattered him to his face and plotted against him behind his back. He lived with the crushing weight of the world on his shoulders, spending years freezing in a tent on the muddy frontiers of the empire while trying to hold a crumbling society together. One man was at the absolute bottom, and the other was at the absolute top. Yet, both of these men faced the exact same suffocating pressure of external judgment. And both of them used the exact same weapon to completely neutralize it. They used the philosophy of Stoicism. Epictetus, the slave, realized early on that while his physical body might be bound, his mind was entirely his own. He realized that the insults and the harsh opinions of his masters could only humiliate him if he actually gave them his internal agreement. He refused to agree. He reclaimed his mind and eventually won his actual freedom, becoming one of the most respected teachers in history. He taught that if you want to be invincible, you simply must stop entering battles where the outcome is not entirely in your control. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, who could have any pleasure or exact revenge on any critic with a snap of his fingers, chose instead to retreat into his own mind. He wrote private journals to remind himself that the applause of the crowd is completely worthless and that fame is just an empty echo. He looked at the politicians and the wealthy elites of Rome scrambling for status, and he pitied them because they were slaves to their own desires and fears. He knew that true power was not commanding a massive army, but commanding your own emotional reactions. So here you are, living somewhere right in the middle between the slave and the emperor. You are not bound in physical chains, and you do not rule a global empire. Yet, in many ways, you suffer more than both of them did because you willingly put the chains on yourself. You act like a slave to the opinion of your neighbor, and you desperately crave the fake, temporary empire of internet fame and digital validation. If a slave with no legal rights can find total mental freedom, and if an emperor with the weight of the world on his shoulders can find absolute inner peace, what is your excuse? Why are you still crying over the fact that someone misunderstood you or did not appreciate your hard work? You have the exact same 2,000-year-old antidote available to you right now. It is the realization that everything outside of your own reasoned choice is just noise. It is the understanding that you cannot control the lips of other people, but you can absolutely control whether you choose to listen to them. You must stop trying to manipulate the opinions of strangers. You must realize that whether they praise you or insult you, their words are just vibrating air. Do not let those vibrations shake the solid ground of your own character. It is time to apply the antidote. Wipe away the false opinions and realize that true power is refusing to be moved by things that simply do not matter. You want to know how the slave and the emperor actually did it, how they found that absolute freedom while the rest of the world panicked. They did not use magic, and they did not run away to a cave. They used a single, brutal rule, and it is a rule you must tattoo on the inside of your eyelids right now. It is the line of power. But before you can draw that line, you have to realize the insane danger you are currently in. Imagine you are invited to a lavish banquet. You are sitting in a velvet chair, eating the finest food, Listening to people flatter you and tell you how amazing you are. You feel successful. You feel validated. But then you look up. Hanging directly over your neck is a massive, razor-sharp sword, suspended from the ceiling by a single, fragile horsehair. That is the sword of Damocles. That is exactly how you live your life when you care about the opinions of other people. You are sitting at the banquet of social approval, enjoying the likes, the compliments, the promotions, and the nods of respect from people you want to impress. But the sword is right above you. That single horsehair is the fickle, unpredictable mood of the crowd. At any second, a rumor, a misunderstanding, a shift in the cultural wind, or just a bad day for your boss can snap that hair. The sword drops, and your happiness is completely decapitated. Why would you ever choose to sit in that chair? Why would you build your life under a suspended blade? The Stoic steps away from the chair. You step away by drawing a hard, violent line straight through the center of reality. The ancient philosopher Epictetus laid down the ultimate law of human existence. He said that of all existing things, some are in our power, and others are not in our power. That is it. That is the only game that matters. You must take a thick, black marker and divide your entire world into two completely separate halves. On one side of the line is everything you actually control. What is on this list? Your own thoughts, your own impulses, your own choices, your own reactions, your own character. That is the entire list. It is very short, but inside that tiny territory, you are an absolute monarch. No one can force you to assent to a false belief. No one can force you to be a bad person. Now, look at the other side of the line. This is the list of things you do not control. What is on it? Everything else. Your physical body, your bank account, the stock market, the weather, the traffic on the interstate, and, most importantly, the opinions, judgments, and whispers of every other human being on the planet. What do you do with this second list? You take it, you crumple it up, and you throw it directly into the trash. It is none of your business. It belongs to the universe, not to you. Your sickness is that you spend 90% of your energy trying to control the trash. You stay up late rehearsing arguments in your head, trying to figure out how to make your coworkers respect you more. You buy a $60,000 truck with a loan you cannot afford, just so the guys in the neighborhood think you are tough. You obsess over how to craft the perfect digital image so that strangers will validate your existence. You are trying to command the weather, and you are failing miserably. You cannot dictate what goes on inside the skull of another person. Their mind is their territory. When you try to invade their territory, you abandon your own. You leave your own fortress completely unguarded while you are out chasing ghosts in the fog. Stop doing it. The moment you realize that their opinion of you is none of your business, a massive, crushing weight is lifted off your chest. Let them judge you. Let them whisper. Let them misunderstand you. If their judgment is not under your control, it is fundamentally worthless to you. It cannot touch your character. The line of power is absolute. Stand firmly on your side of the line. When you stop demanding that the world approve of you, the world loses all its leverage over you. You are no longer sitting under the sword, waiting for the hair to snap. You are standing on solid ground, armed with the only thing that has ever truly belonged to you, which is your own reasoned choice. Now that you have drawn that thick black line through the center of your reality, you must build something impenetrable on your side of that line. You must construct what the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius called the inner citadel. Imagine a massive, ancient fortress. Picture heavy stone walls reaching hundreds of feet into the sky, surrounded by a deep moat and fortified with solid iron gates. Outside this fortress, a chaotic army is raging. They are launching flaming arrows, hurling massive boulders, and screaming insults at the top of their lungs. This army represents the outside world. It represents your critical boss, your judgmental family members, the anonymous internet trolls, and every single piece of negative gossip that has ever been whispered about you. They are making a massive amount of noise, but look closely at the walls of your citadel. The arrows are bouncing off the stone. The boulders are shattering into harmless dust. The shouts and the insults are just vibrating air dissolving into the wind. The fortress is taking absolutely zero physical damage. It is completely invincible. Now, ask yourself, how could that raging army ever get inside and destroy the peace of the fortress? They do not have the power to break down the walls. They do not have the weapons to shatter the iron gates. There is only one way they can possibly get in. Someone on the inside has to walk down to the gates, lift the heavy wooden beam, turn the heavy iron key, and willingly throw the doors wide open for them. That someone is you. Every single time you let the opinion of another person ruin your day, you are committing an act of absolute treason against your own mind. You are voluntarily unlocking the gates of your inner citadel and inviting the enemy inside to burn your peace to the ground. The ancient Stoics understood a profound psychological truth. They realized that an insult, a mocking laugh, or a cruel comment has absolutely no objective power. It is just a sound wave traveling through the air. It has no physical weight. It cannot cut your skin. It cannot break your bones. And it cannot touch your soul. The only way those vibrating air molecules can cause you psychological pain is if you give them your voluntary agreement. The Stoics called this concept assent. When someone calls you a failure or tells you that your ideas are stupid, their words stop at the wall of your citadel. They sit there, waiting for your response. If you get angry, if you feel embarrassed, if you start crying, what you are actually doing is giving your assent to their false judgment. You are looking at their insult and saying, "Yes, I agree with you. I am a failure, and I am going to feel terrible about it." Why on earth would you ever agree to something so destructive? You must realize that you are the sole guardian of the gate. When the outside world hurls its judgments at you, you do not have to accept them. You can look at the insult, examine it objectively, and simply refuse to sign for the delivery. You can say to yourself, "That is just an impression. It is just a random opinion from a person who does not truly know me, and I refuse to let it inside my fortress." This is not about building a wall of ignorance or refusing to learn from constructive feedback. It is about recognizing that your self-worth must never be dictated by the shifting, unreliable moods of the crowd. You are a rational human being, yet you have spent years acting like a helpless victim, blaming other people for hurting your feelings when you were the one handing them the knife. You must stop being complicit in your own misery. It is time to recall the guards, pull up the drawbridge, and seal the iron gates. When the world demands that you feel ashamed or inadequate, you must stand firm on your walls and respond with absolute silence. You must realize that true strength is not fighting back against the mob, but simply watching them exhaust themselves against the impenetrable stone of your own self-respect. The pain you feel does not come from the world. It comes from your own agreement with the world. Withdraw your agreement right now. Step back into the quiet safety of your inner citadel. Plant your feet on the solid ground of your own character and realize that you are completely untouchable unless you give the command. Even with the heavy iron gates of your inner citadel locked tight, you might still hear the faint, muffled shouts of the mob outside, and you might still feel a lingering temptation to care about their petty judgments. To completely crush that temptation, you must use a mental technique favored by the ancient philosophers, an exercise that will instantly shatter the illusion of their importance. You must take the view from above. Imagine right now that you can pull your consciousness out of your physical body and float upward toward the ceiling. Keep going. Float 100 feet up in the air and look down at your house, then 1,000 feet up, then 50,000 feet up until you are staring down at your entire city. then the entire North American continent, and finally the whole spinning blue globe. From up here in the freezing, silent vacuum of space, look down at the people who are judging you. Look at the coworker who rolled his eyes at your presentation, the relative who constantly criticizes your life choices, or the anonymous stranger who left a toxic comment on your social media page. Who are these people? Really strip away their impressive titles, their expensive cars, and their loud opinions. What do you see? You see tiny, fragile creatures scurrying around on a speck of rock. They wake up, they eat their breakfast, they sit in gridlock traffic on the interstate. They stand in line at the grocery store, they go to the bathroom, they complain about their mortgages and their credit scores, they get sick, and eventually, they will take their final breath and disappear into the dirt. They are flawed, anxious, vulnerable animals just trying to survive, and most of them are completely terrified and clueless about what they are doing. Why in the world are you letting the opinions of these tiny, confused creatures dictate your happiness? Now, stretch your mind even further and think about the infinite abyss of time. Think of the thousands of years of human history that came before you, the empires that rose and fell in spectacular violence, the kings and queens who thought they ruled the universe but are now nothing more than forgotten bones and dust. Then look forward into the millions of years of the future, a vast and stretching eternity where absolutely everything you know will be wiped clean. In the grand, sweeping scale of this infinite timeline, the lifespan of the person judging you is a fraction of a millisecond. Their insults, their praises, their gossip, and their snide remarks are nothing but tiny, meaningless vibrations of air that dissipate into the atmosphere and are instantly lost forever. You and your harshest critics are both just smoke and dust, momentary flashes of existence in an endless void. You might think this cosmic perspective is depressing or nihilistic, but it is actually the exact opposite. It is the ultimate, absolute liberation. It is the key to setting yourself completely free. If everything is so incredibly small, and if every human being is destined to be entirely forgotten, then the heavy, suffocating pressure of social expectation is a complete illusion. You have been carrying around a massive boulder of anxiety for absolutely no reason. When you truly grasp the sheer insignificance of a human opinion, it becomes physically impossible to care about what people think. You look at their judgments and you almost have to laugh at the absurdity of it all. You are a microscopic speck of consciousness exploring a microscopic speck of dust for a microscopic fraction of time, and you are going to waste even 1 second of that miracle worrying about whether someone else approves of your shoes, your job, or your lifestyle. Cut the cord. Drop the weight. The next time you feel your chest tighten because someone disapproves of you, zoom out. Fly high above the clouds and look down at the ridiculousness of the situation. Let the vast, silent truth of the universe wash over you and wash away the meaningless noise of the crowd. Their opinions are less than nothing. Their judgments are less than nothing. And the only rational choice you have left is to live your brief, beautiful life exactly the way you know is right. Completely untouchable by the fading whispers of dying men. Now that you have flown high above the clouds and seen how incredibly small the opinions of the crowd truly are, we must bring your mind back down to solid earth, because down here on the ground, you still have to wake up and walk out your front door every single morning. And the exact moment you step out into the world, you are stepping directly into an arena. Life is not a graceful, synchronized dance where everyone follows the same pleasant rhythm. The ancient Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote that the art of living is much more like wrestling than dancing. It is a grueling, exhausting combat sport where you must constantly be prepared for sudden attacks. When someone insults you, when a coworker undermines your project, when a stranger leaves a bitter review of your hard work, how do you usually react? You probably feel like you are under attack. You feel like a helpless victim. You look up and ask the universe why this unfair treatment is happening to you. But the Stoic philosopher looks at this exact same situation from a completely different perspective. They do not see an enemy trying to destroy them. They see a sparring partner, Epictetus, the brilliant philosopher who spent his early life as a physically battered slave, taught his students that when a difficult challenge or a cruel person confronts you, you must remember that the universe is simply matching you with a younger, tougher sparring partner. Why would the universe do this to you? It does this so that you can become an Olympic champion of your own mind. You absolutely cannot build muscle without heavy resistance. You cannot become truly invincible if your patience and your character are never put to the test. You say that you want to be strong. You say that you want to be completely free from the fear of judgment. Yet you complain and cry when the universe actually hands you the heavy weights you desperately need to lift in order to build that exact mental strength. You simply cannot have it both ways. Those people mocking you, judging you, and whispering about your personal choices behind your back are not your executioners. They are your personal trainers. They are handing you the exact resistance you need to master the art of not caring. Imagine you are a professional fighter stepping into the ring for a championship bout. You weigh 200 pounds of solid muscle, and you are ready for war. When your sparring partner throws a heavy punch at your face, do you take it personally? Do you go home and cry in your bedroom because they tried to hit you? Of course not. You block the punch. You slip away. You absorb the impact. You understand that their attacks are just a necessary part of the game. They are making your reflexes sharper and your skin thicker. The critics and the haters in your everyday American life are doing the exact same beneficial thing for your mind. Every single time they hurl a judgment in your direction, they are throwing a punch. You have a choice in how you respond. You can drop your guard, let the punch hit you square in the jaw, and let their meaningless opinion dictate your self-worth. Or you can slip the punch. You can recognize that their unprovoked attack has absolutely nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own miserable insecurities. You are standing in the arena, but you absolutely do not have to fight their petty fight. The Stoic warrior does not waste an ounce of energy trying to control the crowd or trying to silence the opponent. The Stoic simply stands firm. You plant your feet firmly on the mat. You take the blow. You smile back at them. And you remain completely unmoved. You finally realize that a critic is just a biological tool provided by nature to help you sculpt your own unbreakable character. If you look at reality this way, you should actually be deeply grateful for the haters. Without them, you would be incredibly soft. Without them, you would be mentally weak. Without them, you would never know what you are actually capable of enduring. So the next time someone rolls their eyes at your ambition or questions your lifestyle, do not get angry. Do not waste a single breath trying to defend yourself to people who do not matter. Look at them as a piece of gym equipment. Use their toxic negativity to fuel your own relentless forward momentum. You are playing for a championship that most people do not even know exists. You are fighting for the absolute liberation of your own soul. Let them talk. Let them judge. Let them throw their wild and undisciplined punches into the empty air. You just keep your hands up. Keep your eyes focused on your own goals, and keep moving forward. You are untouchable not because you never get hit, but because you no longer care about the impact. Now that you understand how to slip the punches in the arena and let the critics exhaust themselves, you must learn where to retreat when the fight is over. You cannot live every single second in the middle of a chaotic battlefield without eventually losing your mind. To truly master the art of not caring about what people think, you must actively stop chasing the noise they create. You must learn the profound, terrifying, and heroic art of going home and staying there. Look at the modern American lifestyle. We are conditioned to believe that we must constantly be in motion, constantly networking, constantly attending happy hours, parties, and events just to prove that we exist and that we matter. We are absolutely terrified of missing out. We equate physical stillness with failure and silence with irrelevance. But the world outside is not a playground. It is a massive, relentless factory of noise designed specifically to distract you from the only thing you truly own, which is your own mind. You think that by staying plugged into the social matrix, by checking your social media feeds every 5 minutes, you are staying relevant. In reality, you are just keeping the wound open. You are inviting the mob into your living room. How can you possibly expect to stop caring about their opinions when you are voluntarily carrying their voices around in your pocket and holding them up to your face? It is time to raise the drawbridge. You must physically and mentally disconnect. Go home, close your front door, turn off your mobile device, and sit alone in a quiet room. I warn you, the first few moments of this intentional silence will feel like absolute hell. Your ego will scream at you. Your mind will panic, telling you that you are missing out on an important conversation, that someone is having fun without you, or that people are forgetting about you. This is not a sign that you should go back out into the world. This panic is simply the withdrawal symptom of a soul that has become deeply addicted to external validation. You have spent years feeding off the unpredictable scraps of other people's approval, and now that you have cut off the supply, your mind is starving. Let it starve. Sit in the chair. Feel the weight of your own body. Look at the blank wall and simply breathe. This silent room is the dojo of your soul. This is the laboratory where you forge your inner citadel. When you remove the endless cacophony of the crowd, you are finally forced to face the stranger in the mirror. You realize that without the likes, the comments, the praise, and the criticism, you are just a human being alone with your own character. And that is exactly where your true power lies. Silence is the ultimate filter for reality. When you sit in complete quiet for long enough, the sharp sting of a coworker's insult or the anxiety of a stranger's judgment begins to dissolve. You start to see those external opinions for what they truly are, which is absolutely nothing. They are fleeting, meaningless vibrations of air that cannot penetrate the thick stone walls of a mind at peace. The ancient Stoics knew that you cannot find stillness while you are running. You cannot find your center of gravity while you are constantly twisting and turning to catch the eye of the crowd. You only find it in the refusal to move. You find it when you stop resisting the quiet and start using it to rebuild your fractured attention. You must treat your mind like a neglected garden, spending your time alone pulling out the weeds of envy, the weeds of insecurity, and the deep, suffocating weeds of other people's expectations. So let the rest of the world run. Let them chase the impossible horizon of popularity. Let them exhaust themselves trying to manipulate the opinions of a mob that does not care about them. You will stay behind. You will build your fortress. You will sit in the silence and master your own soul, discovering a deep, unbreakable freedom that no amount of social status could ever purchase. By the time you finally unlock your door and step back out into the noise of the world, you will not be the same fragile person who ran inside to hide. You will be heavy, rooted, and impossible to move. You will be a fortress of solitude walking through a crowd, entirely untouchable by their fleeting judgments, because you have already found everything you will ever need in the quiet sanctuary of your own mind. When you finally unlock the door of your quiet room and step back out into the loud, chaotic streets of the American landscape, you are going to face an immediate choice. The world is going to try to hand you the leash again. Let us look at the modern dream you have been sold. You were told that success means everyone clapping for you as you drive a $100,000 sports car you do not even own, wearing clothes you bought on high-interest credit, trying desperately to impress people who secretly want you to fail. That is not success. That is the highest and most pathetic form of slavery. The ancient philosophers understood that the only true freedom is psychological freedom. If you need the crowd to nod their heads and validate your choices, you are wearing invisible chains. A coworker will make a passive-aggressive comment. A stranger will leave a toxic review of your hard work. Your family will question why you are not following the traditional path. In that exact second, you have to remember the ultimate definition of the invincible human being. Epictetus, the crippled slave who became the master of his own mind, asked his students a brilliant question. He asked, "Who is the truly invincible person? You might think it is the undefeated fighter who knocks out every opponent, or the ruthless executive who crushes every rival company." But Epictetus said no. The invincible human being is simply the person who refuses to step into any contest where the outcome is not entirely within their own control. It is a profound, earth-shattering paradox. You become completely unbeatable the exact moment you stop trying to win the shallow games invented by the crowd. When you see people fighting for social status, arguing in the comments section, and destroying their own peace of mind just to look important, you must realize they are fighting a war they cannot possibly win because they are fighting over things they do not even own. You must look at their chaotic arena, turn your back, and walk away. You win the game of public opinion by completely refusing to play it. Your life is an incredibly brief, fragile spark in the infinite darkness of eternity. You have a few short decades on this spinning blue globe, and every single morning brings you one day closer to the moment you will take your final breath. Knowing that absolute, terrifying truth, how can you possibly justify wasting another hour worrying about whether a group of confused, insecure strangers approves of your decisions? Close the heavy iron doors to their judgment permanently. You do not need their permission to be a good person. You do not need their validation to pursue your actual purpose. It is time to issue your own Declaration of Independence. You must declare that your mind is a sovereign territory, and that the fickle opinions of the mob are no longer allowed to cross your borders. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a man who faced constant betrayal, massive plagues, and brutal wars, wrote down a visual metaphor that you must carry with you every single day of your life. He wrote that you must become like a massive stone promontory, jutting out into the violent ocean. Picture it in your mind right now. The sky is dark, the wind is howling, and the massive, angry waves of the sea are crashing against the cliff. Those waves represent the outside world. They are the insults, the rumors, the unfair criticisms, the societal expectations, and the endless, exhausting noise of the people who want to drag you down to their level. The waves slam into the rock with tremendous fury, throwing salt water and foam high into the air, doing everything they can to break the stone apart. But what does the rock do? It does not complain. It does not argue with the ocean. It does not try to explain itself to the water. It just stands there, heavy, silent, and rooted infinitely deep in the earth. Because the rock refuses to move. Because it refuses to be shaken by the chaos around it. The fury of the water eventually exhausts itself. The storm passes, the waves break and dissolve into harmless white foam, and the sea around the rock becomes perfectly flat, silent, and calm. You must become that rock. You must let the frantic, desperate mob exhaust itself against the impenetrable stone of your absolute certainty. Let them judge you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them whisper behind your back. Their words are just vibrating air, and they will fade into nothingness, just as the people speaking them will eventually fade into dust. When you finally sever the strings of their approval, you do not just survive the world. You conquer it. You become a truly free citizen of the universe, immune to the poison of external validation, armed with the only weapon that has ever mattered, which is your own unbreakable character. Step out of the noise, reclaim your freedom, and stand firm forever. You have the blueprint. The tools of the emperor and the slave are in your hands, ready for you to build your inner citadel. The mob will always be loud, and the critics will always whisper, but you absolutely do not have to be crushed by their noise anymore. Step out of the arena of public opinion and claim your freedom right now. If this message helped you break those invisible chains, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and share this video with someone who needs it. Drop a comment below saying I am the rock to make your commitment real. Stay strong, build your fortress, and stop giving a single thought to their empty judgments. See you next video.